This is Denise. I wanted to speak with you today. I was reluctant for a long time, having thoughts in my mind, and suddenly I just felt inside myself that I have to speak out. I have to be honest of what I feel for the things that I see as wrong and even look at myself and say, no, you cannot just be quiet of things that you feel that weren't fair. And I think that this is the beginning of becoming more open, shedding our tendencies to not to look inside ourselves and to look at the things that we have done, but also the things that others have done or the whole system has done. And when I look at myself now, I say, is this what I wanted? No, I didn't want this. I came to this country when I was in my 20s, 24. I crossed from Canada to New York. I had a passport, of course, that I could do that. And then at that time, I did have everything I needed. Of course, I didn't have a social security at the time. I did have a social security at that time because when I was 15, I came as an exchange student to this country. And at that time, my so-called American mother, who is an amazing person, I loved her and her family and forever. She decided that she wanted to take me to get a social security so I could get a summer job in McDonald's. And I said, sure, let's do it. And we went, and she was such a sweetheart. She spoke with everyone there at the Social Security office. We were on a line, but it just shows how good-hearted she was, and so real, and the system supported that. The system was behind that, and she could do it openly. And I thought that that was beautiful. It was an example for me too, coming from Brazil, even though I was very, at that time, actually, I was pretty well off. My family was secure. I came from a good family. I had an education. I spoke English. I learned English. I came to the US as an exchange student. So all these things uh, were privileges that I had at the time that I didn't see it in that way. But of course, when I came to another country and I meet this wonderful family, and I am so lucky to be there and not to be with the wrong people, but to be with the right people. And I was very happy to had experienced that. And so that was when I got my Social Security. And so when I came out of Canada, because my intention was to go from Rio de Janeiro, my city, to Canada. And when I came out of Canada, because first of all, I left my city in the middle of a scorching summer. It was like 100, maybe 98 degrees in February or January. I don't remember exactly if it was January, February, or if it was December. It could be December, but still, in Brazil, in Rio, summer usually used to be the whole year pretty much, but the hottest summer was in the times that we have, like Christmas, Carnival. So Christmas is December, Carnival is February. It used to be February, then became March. So in any case, I came from a very hot summer, probably around 40 degrees, to an extremely cold Ottawa in Canada. That was almost, I think it was the coldest year. It reached to be 40 below 0 Celsius. So it was pretty cold. And I decided that also where I went, even though it was, I had a lot of history, this place that I went. Was This is another story that I can tell another time. But in any case, that forced me to decide to go back, and I didn't want to go back until I had, stopped in New York City, because on my way to Canada, I met this Argentinian couple. The woman was Argentinian, the man was American, and that she invited me to visit her in New York City. She asked if I had ever been there, and I said no. So obviously, that's how I ended up in New York City when I was in Canada, right? And um, I took a bus. I had the passport, so I ended up in New York City. Then she was waiting for me in the station, and there we took the subway. I don't know where that was, but she came to help me out, and I can't remember the details now. It has been like what, 30, almost 40, 38 years ago. So, but why I'm saying all this is I don't want to get lost in the details, because there are so many wonderful details, but also terrible details, like horrible details, that I don't want to get lost now. But I wanted to say how important it was for me to see those good things from the world, because now we live in a time in which nothing is real, nothing is sincere. And I was always a very open and straightforward person, and I saw that in my country as a form of truthfulness. I loved myself for that reason. And I never thought I loved myself. It was just a part of me that was genuine, because I grew up in a very Catholic family and very restrictive in so many ways, but all loving people, extremely loving, very loving, but full of rules. And obviously, coming from these kinds of ancient, you know, fears that obviously they could not speak about. But I realized then that my, closest connection with spirituality were things that were not necessarily religious. Even though I had faith, I was very faithful when I prayed. And I felt that I was speaking to God, you know. So to me, that was very important, that it was a heart to heart feeling, a heart to heart experience. But at that time, I was more interested in maybe knowing the various forms of more esoteric things. So I started reading about, the ancient Egypt, uh, ideas, things that happened then. I learned numerology just by, I don't know, by reading books about it, or because at that time the internet didn't exist. So I'm sure that it was through books that I had. And, I discovered about the Buddha, all these situations that were there for me, like books that came around that I could get, that I could buy and read, right? And and that led me to become more and more interested in the esoteric arts. Um, and I think I was already before that, because I used to just be, when I was at my grandma's place, I used to go to the window that overlooked the ocean in Copacabana Beach, and I would just start talking to the moon, you know, and recite poetry to the moon, recite poetry to the stars. So it was, I had a genuine desire for spirituality, for love that was real, a love that was truthful, that I felt, that was beyond any words, and it came straight to me as a child. And at that time, I had issues because I had to deal with a lot of rules when I was completely free as a child. And that part of my temperament and being was so real. Living in a country with carnival, you know, we were much freer at that time than we became with all the freedom that came together with what, drugs and all kinds of corrupted uh, systems that privilege the rich, and all the things that I saw much later, right? When I was a teenager. But I had sensed that because I lived through the military dictatorship in those years. And I sensed that it was much more than that. And now I am back here to this time, 2024, in this country, the United States. I became a citizen here after 10 years of being here because I did have love for my country when I left. I just loved New York City, and New York was the kind of city that I connected with because it was everything. People were very realist, very real at that time. There were musicians on the parks. The artists were very open and straightforward, at least the ones that I met. And first I went to the Art Students League. Just it was the first stop from the bus that I decided to get off the bus and cross the street and see that beautiful building that when I looked at and I saw, oh my God, this is the Art Students League of New York. So this is, I didn't even know about the Art Students League. But the first building that I come all the way across the street to see it face to face turns out to be an art school that made me feel blessed. That I noticed that even without really reading anything, because from afar I couldn't see the details and the bus was moving. But I realized that New York City was privileged and it had something that I really felt that was connected to me, to my soul, to my core soul. Because art has always been my, you know, uh, almost like my invisible friend, if you will. Because I could be myself with any expression, whether it was painting, drawing, dancing, a la Isadora Duncan, whatever, whatever came. Uh, Writing, reading my stuff to my grandparents, especially my grandmother, loved it. I learned to play the accordion when I was 7 or 8. And I played actually at a major theater, the Teatro Municipal. No, Teatro Municipal is one of the main theaters in Copacabana, right on the beach where major stars had been. I can't remember the name now because my mind is elsewhere. And but I played in the theater of that huge hotel, which is this hotel is Hotel Copacabana Palace. And the theater was very unique. So I still have an image of that. I'm going to show it to you. Because this is not a lie. And I want to make sure that I'm very truthful. Here, you can see a picture of me here with a bunch of other people playing in this. Let me see here. I'm on this one here. See here? It's hard to do it upside down. Mirror image here. This is me, this girl here. And I was then 8 or 9 years old. Okay. And here you have all the other people here, right? Famous people, all playing accordion. So I could play the accordion. And I played very well. I was so fast, so all my energy would go on my creativity. But I am saying that because what I came to speak was not about that. Was about, I'm going to remove these glasses because I don't need them. I'm not reading anything right now. But it is important for me to say what I felt last night. I felt that I needed to be truthful, that I needed to speak out. The many things that I had not spoken out, and I wanted to speak out. I even saw myself writing something about this, and I did some research about it, and I couldn't find a way to do it because at the time that I did the research, and I'm going to tell you, this was the first thing that I felt that I needed to speak out, was I was now at the University of California, where I was at Davis, where I was studying for my PhD. I was very well received from the Department of Art History, and I believe that they really wanted me to come there. The people in the department were extremely supportive of me. So I was there now to do my PhD, to do my doctorate. And I was introduced. I was very supported from the beginning. I did 2 masters and a PhD all at once. And of course, each I was prioritizing the first master, but while I was already studying for the PhD, and while I was doing that other master also. So I had many, many classes, and I received some form of support in the first 2 years that I was there. I even got a couple of fellowships from the, the made many different, not many, but a few different organizations that supported students that were coming to do their graduate studies. And at the time, I had a BFA in the visual arts, in art, in fine arts, with another, also, I can't remember the terms now because it has been so many years and decades, and I have been using my mind in so many issues that are not helping my concept of memory, my connection with myself, because it's all crazy and disorganized and chaotic and corrupt and all that. But at that time, at UC Davis, I was very happy to be there. I went to all these classes. I gave myself, and then eventually I started also TAing. And in my second year, or the end of the first year, I already got a position to TA, and I did throughout the 5 years, no, throughout the 4 years, because the last year I had to write my dissertation, and I didn't have time anymore for just teaching. I had to focus on my writing, and I went to Brazil also to do a research, and a local research to have some really interesting data in the visual arts to add that to my dissertation. So my dissertation ended up being like, I don't know, like 300 and some pages or 200 pages. I don't know. It was a lot of writing, a lot of work. And I I was thinking about that because I never really got a full-time position. I don't believe I did. I'm trying to remember. After I graduated with my PhD, I did get, yes, I think I did get in the beginning when I was in California, because first I got always as an adjunct professor, never as a, like a, yeah, it always was an adjunct, even though I had many courses. So first was at San Francisco State University when I taught women's studies, but I was teaching philosophy rather than, and I had my PhD was in cultural studies with emphasis in critical theory and emphasis in Brazilian and Latin American art and emphasis in women's studies. So I did teach that at San Francisco State. In my first class, I had like 100 and I don't know, 100 and probably 120 or whatever students. It was the maximum amount of students. It was a huge theater, and it was overwhelming. But I put myself to do it. And so, like, I came to this country on my own, yes, but I was helped by someone. And I am always grateful for those people that came my way and supported me. And I feel very sad because the system, how it had become, our cultural, our economic, our political system, had become so corrupt in so many ways that it is impossible to note or not to be a part of it. And that is why, and I think I started to see that when I was at UC Davis, because I remember noticing a shift in terms of the academia, and it, that professors in academic departments were no longer the ones that actually made the rules, because at that time, 2000, in the 2000s, it had started already, probably even before that I didn't know, a more, a more diversified system in which uh, people came to the universities as administrators, and the administrative layers of the university had expanded pretty much. So, and I think that and it was needed, because without that the university wouldn't had probably had enough money or wealth to diversify and to expand their buildings, to renovate buildings and so on. So, and it is all corroded by the necessity of money, and that is for sure. But it's also that becomes then the necessity of shifting rules that are not necessarily good for everyone. And as we have seen today, it is becoming less and less even good for those who had invested their lives to be something, to do something with themselves. And that doesn't mean that I did that by being free throughout my learning. No, I had to pay a lot, and I'm still paying student loan. I haven't even paid, because in the summer I don't make almost any money from my work. And so I understand what is happening in that way, but what I think I am learning is, and what is spiritual about this experience, is that I could not any longer respect and be silent, because I was never a corrupt soul. I always try to do the right things, because I came from a family who were good people, very good people. Despite their limitations of knowledge, of belief system. I grew up during the military dictatorship. I mean, when I was teenager, it was 25 years of dictatorship in my country. So, but I was naive, because I was so young still. I was very naive, and I was protected. But there were a lot of people that weren't. I felt that I was protected because my grandfather was a general, but he was not part of the military dictatorship. He was a doctor, and he always had been a doctor. But at that time, many men went to the military, even to become engineers, doctors, whatever. So you see how this relates a little bit to academia, because it was something else when it changed. And it changed because it became mixed together with money, system, political, uh, opportunities, and corruption. And I think that today I have been here for 30, maybe 38, or maybe, yeah, I arrived here in 1984. So, long time ago. And at that time, I want to say that I came here because I was after the arts. And at that time, I had suffered major losses in my life, major. I was in my early 20s, 24, and I had suffered major losses that started in the, you know, my teenage years, 16, 17 years old. So I learned the corruption is everywhere because people don't learn to be truthful, don't sustain their truthfulness. And I think that they say easily amen or lower their heads and just accept whatever is the incumbencies of their system. And I am saying this because I went through it, not just as a grown up woman, but as a teenager. I grew up in a family of good people, honest people, hardworking people, but not people that were poor. But they came, my grandmother, when my great grandfather died, it was my great grandmother that had to work by sewing to other people, by doing different kinds of things, crochet, whatever other things that she used to do at that time. And all her daughters helped with that. My grand aunt, who ended up being 90, 98 or 99 years old, she went out to teach. Her daughter died when she was 21 with real illness that didn't have cure at the time, epilepsy. And, you know, so many things happened in my life that were traumatic. And I left my country after having recovered from the traumas. I recovered by going to therapy, by facing my fears, by having my parents helping me, supporting me to face my fears. But they weren't outspoken about this, but they loved me and they showed the love. They showed the love. And so I am here. And I have been struggling, feeling miserable, feeling oppressed. And I know why. Now I know why. And the spirituality, my own spiritual inner voice was telling me, speak out. Don't hold back what you have to say. You know, that has a connection with my Catholic upbringing, which you had to go to confession. But this is not what I'm talking about. I'm not confessing something that I did. I'm talking about things that happened that I didn't speak because I didn't see at that time that I had the option to do. And today I don't have an option either. But I am doing it because my inner self asks me, the inner self that is coming through a connection with a more enlightened spiritual awareness that I have been having over the last 4 years, even more than that, because I started meditating in 2009, and I went to a Vipassana meditation for 10 days, and you were supposed to be completely silent those 10 days and leave your computer at home, your phone in the car, whatever. You could not use anything, you could not speak, only with the teachers, only meditating throughout the day, early morning, like about 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Then people would go to sleep. The next day, the same thing. 10 days. No speech, only meditation and food. Of course, you had to eat, and walking a little to in nature, silently, alone. So that awakened in me something. And I remember at some point in that meditation, like in my 6th day, I thought maybe I should get out of here and get back home, because I'm starting to feel that I can't sleep, that I'm having so many dreams and they are so lively, that I'm overwhelmed. And I realized that I stayed. I stayed till the last minute, and I finished that. And when I came home, I started to continue to meditate, because that was one thing that I had said that I would do, and I continued to meditate. And then as I kept going, I started to realize that what happened to me at this place was that I had my Kundalini awakening, because I had had my Kundalini awakening when I was in my 20s in Rio. And that was what led me to have a major breakdown, because I didn't understand what the hell was going on with me. I cannot tell the reasons that this happened right now, because this is very private to me. But I can tell that I could overcome that. And I overcame that through therapy. I did therapy for 3 years, group therapy. And then actually before I did it 3 years, I did 1 year of individual therapy. That was psychoanalysis that I did. And it was a Freudian psychoanalysis. And then I did 3 years of group Freudian psychoanalysis with other people with with different issues, of course, but all young people. And that helped me, because I could mourn, I could cry, I could, go to the bathroom with a shower on and cry my soul out. And no one needed to look at me like something happened to me, because my family, they were loving, but they were also very, very like uptight, controlling in their inner selves. And I was the opposite. I was perceived as the black sheep in my family. I was too free, I had too many talents. I could do everything, everything. I could play music, I could dance. I was a great dancer. I could, I played in public. I danced in public. I sang. Eventually, when I finished with my first relationship, what helped me was to learn opera, to you know to learn how to sing opera. And that helped me greatly to understand another love, the love for the arts. And that also was one of the reasons that I had that major breakdown in Brazil, because of uh, the end of a long relationship that I had with my first boyfriend that started when I was 16 and ended when I was in my 20s. So, but I wanted to tell you that there was more to it that I cannot say, but I want you to know that it wasn't easy. It was extremely difficult for me, extremely. And I was holding all these things now that are so real. They were nothing that I did. I have not any shame of anything that I went through, because even the fact that I haven't finished to pay my student loan, because my life, my career, even though I gave it all, and it was difficult economically, but I never got a full-time position. Never. And how could that happen? I am so knowledgeable. I have so much. I have done so much. And another thing is, I have always been a painter. I have many, many paintings here that I have done over more than 3 decades. Not all over 3 decades, because the 3 decades, I mean, at least 2 decades of my work, most all my work had disappeared, or I sold, or I gave, or someone took it, or it was destroyed in moves, and or disappeared, or someone stole. So there were a lot of things that happened that I don't know how I could lose. I know that people took works from me because I have all the works, slides and images that I have done. And so this is another thing that I am so upset, is to see that no matter how much I have proven that I am an artist, that my work is great, I don't have one gallery that could show my work. I spent several years, 20 years curating, actually 30 years curating exhibitions with other artists. And I took artists to other countries. I showed artists here in the US in museums, in galleries, in city centers, and so on. And I feel they were all beginning artists, or very, very talented. And they were more conceptual. My work is started as figurative or more expressionistic to become abstract in many ways. And now that we are back to abstract art, not even my work, where is it? It's not being shown. There's the same people again and again, with those who come after them, claiming that they are painting like that old person that had long been gone, and the work is known, of course. But all these people are known. So I am thinking about how this country has become so clearly taken by money, by power. So I am thinking how, you know, why I left Rio de Janeiro, a beautiful city that I loved for its beauty and its people and its culture. And yet, I left my city because I felt as an artist that I couldn't show my work because everything was corrupt. The galleries only accepted some people, and those people would be the ones that would tell who else would go, or the gallery owner would do that. And when I came here, I saw that the only things that I could do was serve others. What about my work, what I have done over decades? What about me? How I have learned and become as a human being able to share with others, to teach others, to enlighten the path to others. How can I do that if I don't have a chance to show my work? And I'm saying that not because I'm being selfish, it's because I am realizing that this has been the way throughout perhaps 60 years, 100 years, I don't know, 200 years, maybe much more, thousands of years, that had become more and more and more encrusted into this core of systems that destroy possibilities instead of nourishing these possibilities, bringing them and adding them and allowing them to have a role during their time. You know, when I see places that the children are dying because their mothers cannot breastfeed because there is no food. I cannot believe this. I cannot believe how this is happening. And it is, I know what is happening, but I'm saying I cannot believe how there is no transparency in terms of those things in governments, that things can change. I am here. I divorced my husband of 37 years a few years ago, before COVID, when my mother came to live with me because she had Alzheimer's. And I was then teaching at Indiana University in Bloomington. And my mother, the first half an hour that she was in my apartment, she obviously was taking a shower. And when she tried to get out, she got out without waiting for me, and she fell down and broke her hip. And then in half an hour that she was in my place, we haven't even had coffee yet, I was calling the ambulance and she was on her way to the hospital. And there she had eventually a surgery the next day, because luckily the best doctor, she broke her femur and she needed a surgery. So the best orthopedist, not orthopedist, what's the name now? I'm sorry, but my mind has been affected by COVID. Not that I had COVID at that time, but the isolation greatly affected my memory. And I used to have an amazing memory, and now it's limited because I have to to heal from this period that was traumatic to not just to me, to everyone. But what I am saying is that all of these things that are happening, that have happened, they create forms of impediments inside of us that we cannot be sincere. We cannot speak our souls. We cannot speak our hearts. We cannot communicate openly, freely, and knowing that people are not going to put us down because they will understand that we all went through different difficulties because of the same system, the system of privileging a few for masses of people that are underprivileged, and in many situations, in chaotic situations. I am not in a chaotic situation because I have done a lot of work, and I can get this or that job, but it's not that well paid. I tell you that so much that I am limited, constantly limited. Like someone cut my, you know, uh, the rope shorter and shorter, and I am tied up in other ways, so I cannot move. So I decided to do, I am going to speak out how I feel to my viewers. And I would like you to realize that I'm doing that because I think that we all need to speak out. We all need to heal. And I felt this as almost like something spiritual telling me, speak out, be yourself in every way you can, and say how you feel. And I am saying how I feel because I believe that we this is what we need to do now. We need to speak out and put out the things that are holding us back, that are limiting us. And in every system, we have limitations. We have, rules. And we cannot even be intuitive or use our knowledge in a more, let's say, a more open manner. Sometimes we cannot even use a word that we are going to be corrected by someone that sees something politically incorrect in it. But I'm saying, I'm not talking about intentional things that would be, just trying to put down people or create offensive statements. No, I'm saying the truth. To speak one's truth or to speak what one has experienced as a form of opening up some of these crusts that we had attained over the years. All of us in different, probably in different strengths, in different, kind of harshnesses, thicknesses. So we have to consider that sometimes it's not very easy. Of course, we had to help those who were being underprivileged. We have to do laws that support the underprivileged. Sure, we have to help those who were discriminated. Sure, but we also have to help our own real true selves in ways that we clear some of these indulging corruption of the mind. And I think that that is the one that I am really finding it to be an important step now. We have to put it out of our minds, out of our hearts, so we can start healing and feeling better, smiling again, perhaps even laughing in the park with others, feeling that there is community, connecting with people, and knowing that they are our brothers and sisters, our same people, all people. And we have to understand that the reason that we cannot open up is because we have invested a lot and we don't want to do it. But the point is, we have to do it, because if we don't open up about things that we suffered also, but also about how we see the world and how it needs to change, we are not going to be able to change anything. We're just going to keep creating more and more forms of distraction. And that is what is happening. It is trying to happen again. So we have to find a way to think about community in that way, in a more truthful way, in a more supportive way, supportive of each other, in a more opportunity without some form of laws that change these opportunities as you are trying to have them also. Okay, so everybody that has done work deserves the support for their work. And the ones who are starting need to put their work before they gain their, even if they are extremely talented, they still need time, because not everybody can do at the same time. We have to prioritize those who had given more in their times, of themselves, not of money, of themselves. And that is what we need to do next. We have to be truthful with ourselves and expand our understanding of community, deepen that sense of community. And then we will start being spontaneous again. And maybe if we continue doing the right things, the good things, we will be there. We will be strong to deal with any issues that come ahead of us. So that is what I wanted to say. And I hope that you are able to receive this, because it took me maybe months, years, decades to be able to do this clearly like that. Thank you. Now I don't know how to, if, I hope this is going. I don't know. I imagine it is. So I'm going to stop here. Okay.